Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It is July 14th, Thursday. Now that I'm recording this is the main show. So yeah, we had more inflation numbers come out, the PPI, which is the producer price index, and market didn't like that either. So it got taken down a notch. However, the activity was still kind of the same as yesterday with the CPI. Big drop down, and then it kind of migrated up and floated up for the rest of the day. So again, the market's not exactly falling apart at this point, and I'm trying to look at that and see what we can do with it. It's still very mixed out there, so I'm going to go through and show you guys a bunch of kind of the indexes and sectors, what's going on, some big names, and some things to kind of just show you the examples of what's kind of happening out there. But it is not an easy market right now. It is very choppy. We don't have a direction. And so basically the rest of the market is doing the same thing. It's just, it's tough out there. So not a whole lot to really work with because we don't have a lot. We just don't have a lot of ammunition. We don't have a lot of good ammunition out there. So that's over here, profitpilot.com. You guys got that. And then we can come over here to the charts. Oh, and then what I wanted to show you is if we look at the internals today. So this was today, and it was very strange today, very strange day. We had pretty significant negative order flow all day long. The ticks for the most part were negative. We got a little bit of a bump and then kind of sold off at the end there as far as the ticks go. And the advanced decline as far as the number of stocks that were up versus down was significantly down. I mean, 2,000 is a pretty significant number to the downside. And stayed that way pretty much all day and only slightly migrated upward. However, the market went up. So very strange internals today. It was kind of some weird activity. And the only thing I can kind of attribute this to is just that we were in chop. And we've gotten, of course, some bad data and some bad news out there and stuff like that. It's just been tough to work with. The couple of things that I want to point out as far as the Moxie indicator and what I'm seeing and how this works is the last dip we had here on the hourly chart, price was below the 50, but the Moxie indicator was above zero. That was a trampoline move, like a potential trampoline move. We're looking for it and trying to see on the next lower time frame if it's going to hold. And what we could see is basically we had price kind of moving down, maybe double bottom, you could say, like that. And we had the Moxie indicator making its way up. It wasn't the greatest setup, and that was what I was saying at the time. It's like, well, it's not falling apart. It is moving up, but it's not awesome. And we did get a little bit of a move up there. But, wash, rinse, repeat, it got rejected by the hourly 200 for a second time. And so I was expecting a pullback. I was expecting price to pull back down to here or something like that, and it did. And then I was looking for another potential trampoline move. So price below the 50, the Moxie indicator above zero, and again, the Moxie indicator above zero. So we're trying to see if this thing is just going to pull down into some support. And as I said yesterday with the CPI number, we got a gap down, but it came back up. Not too bad. Today, same thing, gap down, kind of migrated back up. Not too bad as far as what price looks like. Now, the internals today were very different than yesterday. Yesterday, the internals were pretty neutral, slightly positive. Today, the internals were very negative. The other thing to note is that the Moxie indicator is generally trending down, kind of with price. Maybe not the same angle, but it is going down, and so is price, compared to where price was kind of going down like this, and the Moxie indicator was going up like that. So that's been some weird stuff. The market did recover. It is now over the 15-minute 50. That's not necessarily the same as engaging with an uptrending 15-minute 50. So it seems to me it's probably going to still have to take a little bit of time and hammer things out before we can really figure something out. I've been wanting to lean bullish with this because, well, it's not falling apart. It is in a range. And if it is oversold, we should hammer out a bottom here, and then maybe we can kind of make our way up a little bit. However, you just have to be on guard that maybe what's going to happen is we get this chop, and maybe this chop comes up a little ways before then rolling over, as opposed to actually making a decent move to the upside. It's hard. It's really hard to say what we're in for because it's just all chop. It's been really tough to be working with this and see what's going on and how it's working out. Now, as far as the indices, this is the S&P, and if we come over to the NASDAQ is actually, I would say, a little bit stronger than the S&P because look at it. It closed where it closed yesterday. That's actually fairly decent. So I'm trying to look bullish. I'm trying to say that I think the markets are going to chop their way up, and it seems like it wants to. Nasdaq is closing higher than the S&P, or at least same as yesterday, that kind of thing. And again, we do have trampoline moves or potential trampoline moves here on the hourly chart. So, and we're making higher lows. We got all these things that say, well, we are trying to resolve to the upside, but as we know with the market, it can be a very tricky thing, and there's always the possibility that this kind of migrates up like this, reaches a point, and then it rolls over. I think the question is just how far does it go, and do the rest of the tickers out there actually support this? And it's a very, very mixed bag. I'm not seeing a whole lot of individual names really kind of rip and roaring kind of thing. So then if we look at the IWM, it's weaker than the S&P. And you can see here, it has been trying to make higher lows, but we kind of have the equal low right there. So, it's not looking awesome. Moxie indicator, same thing, not too much there. You guys see the difference? You see how the Moxie indicator was going up, and this one's just kind of doing nothing? So I think that is something to look at and be aware of. It doesn't seem as strong as the other direction. And, I don't know what else to say about this. It's just chopping, just more chop. The only other thing I could think of is if we are maybe kind of like in this situation. This was back in February and March, and just a lot of chop. Yes, it did eventually get a pretty big bounce and move up over the daily 50, which, again, I'm trying to look bullish on this thing, and there's a possibility that maybe we get another little blip up like that, just like we get that, but that blip to the upside eventually is going to run into resistance and roll over again. So even if we do get a move to the upside, which I'm looking for and seeing if we can get, but a move to the upside is going to be right into resistance and really is just going to be a bounce and an overall downtrend. So I kind of feel as though the market is oversold and obviously is having a hard time getting lower. So we should see it move higher, but boy, it's making things difficult. And if it does eventually resolve to the upside, it's going to go only so far until it runs into resistance and rolls over again in a pretty significant way, I'm sure. And then if we look at the Dow Jones, it really got hammered today, partly because JP Morgan and some other financials are in here, and JP Morgan said that they're canceling their stock buybacks, and then there were a few other things, stress tests and some other stuff, and basically not doing too well. So those went down, and you can see that the Dow Jones made a lower low today. So that's not good either, and you can see that the Moxie indicator is not looking too hot, especially compared to last time where it was moving up. So we are seeing some weakness out there, and that's why I'm saying it's a really challenging spot right now, and it's really kind of weird what's going on out there, and it's tough to be working with this. And then another curious spot are the semis. So another thing that I kind of talk about as far as price and moving averages and how things kind of work that way is that price will move how it wants to move, but it doesn't like to get too far away from its moving averages, whether on the high side or the low side. And you can see that for every gap there is, price comes back to the 50, and then you get a gap and it comes back to the 50, and we've got a gap. And so this is another area and sector of the market to where I see the potential for price to move up to the daily 50, maybe a little bit beyond. And I would imagine that if the semis are going to be moving up to the 50, the S&P and the rest of the indices should, especially since the semiconductor space has been weaker than the market and has basically been a laggard. So it is very curious to see that this has actually had a pretty good day compared to the rest of the indexes. But I think that there's a gap here, and eventually I would imagine price is going to go and fill that gap back to the daily 50. Some other things to look at, we had price down, Moxie indicator up, there's your positive divergence. You get over the hourly 50, then it came back down into the 50, held the 50, and moved up. So this is actually looking pretty clean compared to the indices, the NASDAQ and the S&P and the IWM, anything else like that. And so, I don't know, semis, apparently there's some strength in there. Maybe just because they're so oversold, they want to start migrating back to the upside. And then if we look at the UVXY, this is another one that we've been trying to talk about, and you can see that there's a level right through here, so kind of right there that you can see that it's been holding, and it is there again. And this is definitely a push-pull that I've been looking at, trying to say, well, if this works and the UVXY goes up, well, then the market goes down. But if the market looks like it wants to go up, then this should go down. And we're right at that spot. I mean, we're, as far as that trend line it goes and having it work, I mean, we're right there and trying to figure out if this is going to start moving up or if it's going to break that trend line to the downside. And I'm looking for answers, and we really don't have any answers yet, because what are you supposed to do with that? There's nothing to do with that. There's no trend. It's just chop. So there is really not much to be doing right here as far as some of these trades. And then I look at the ARKK ETF just to kind of get an idea of what's going on with so the very beat up sectors, all those names that they've just gotten smashed. And what I've been noting is double bottom and then higher lows. Okay, so we're trying to look at this and say, well, hey, it's making some progress. The other thing that it's doing as far as making progress is it has the 8 over the 21, and it does have price trying to stay over the daily 50. The Moxie indicator is very high above 0. That's good. And then we had trampoline move and another potential trampoline move because the Moxie indicator is above 0. So looking at that, and kind of in the area where I was looking for price to stay over the 15-minute 50 and actually move up like this, because Moxie indicator was moving up very similar to this last time where price got over the 15-minute 50 and moved up. We didn't get that. So today, because of the PPI and the rest of the market activity, we actually got a pretty big drop down like this, and that kind of kicked the Moxie indicator back down, and now we don't have much information. Things are not really doing anything. They're mostly just going sideways. There's almost nothing to be able to work with here because of what these things are doing. So really challenging in this area. Even the ARKK ETF that I've been looking at, trying to say, well, has it been so beat up that maybe it's going to actually start catching a bid to the upside because sellers shut off or buyers come in on discount and sale? I don't know. It's not happening yet if it is going to happen. So there's ARK. And then so another one, FXI. Now this is, so the Chinese stock here, the Chinese index, this has actually been working out very well for us. This one was a 50-250 maneuver, and you can see that the Chinese index has come all the way back down to the daily 50. That is what I've been targeting. Now I think it's going to go further. I'll show you an example with WDC of what that looks like, because basically you just keep following the lower trend lines and see how well this works. I mean, look, it's been following the 15-minute 50 very well, despite the Moxie indicator going up. So you follow the moving average. And yeah, the Moxie indicator on the hourly chart is so far below 0 that basically any bounces should be shortable. So that's what I'm looking at here. And if you look at KWEB is about the same thing. You could see that daily chart right here, 50, 250, and same thing, keeps in a downtrend. Moxie indicator super far below 0. A little bit of a burble, but same thing, it's still in a downtrend with that 15-minute 50. So with that, we have been trading PDD, and you can see it's basically got the same pattern, so it's been working out. I'm sure there's more to go because that hourly Moxie indicator is still so far below 0. It's telling you that any bounces are just not going to go anywhere. They're gonna bounce and then continue to roll over. So that's PDD. JD also doing the same thing. You could see the 50-250 maneuver, and then price was trying to move up. The Moxie indicator kept moving down. There's your Moxie price trigger, and then down she went. So should be some more downside on this stuff. And then WDC, and this is what I'm talking about with, say, FXI, of like, well, how do we know how far to go with this? Because you can see with WDC, it had a 50-250, and you can see here it went just straight through the 50. Well, what you do is you look at the next lower time frame, and you can see here it stayed underneath a downtrending hourly 50 the entire time, with the Moxie indicator very far below 0. So that's why I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at PDD, KWEB, FXI. I'm like, well, I think it's going to keep going down below the daily 50, and as far as how far it goes, we just wait and watch. You just see how far it goes, because those lower time frames, as long as they are in a downtrend and below the downtrending moving averages, then you should be fine to the downside. All right, then let's see, GBTC. Bitcoin, again, just kind of talk about some sectors. Interesting. So Bitcoin is at least finding a temporary bottom here, and we'll have to see where it goes. It's pretty far away from the daily 50, and so maybe it wants to get closer. It didn't care too much about that last time, but it is doing better about hammering out a bottom as opposed to just a flag. This looks like it wants to stop going down for some time, and then maybe it can start working on moving up for a little bit. Just keep in mind that any stocks that are down like this and just beaten up, while they may not go down any further for the time being, that doesn't mean they have to go up. They can just be dead money and oscillate sideways for a long time. And that's the tricky place, and that you have to think about and just say, well, it may not actually go anywhere. So be careful about that. All right, then we have USO. It has just been going down, 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 and probably is going to head towards the daily 200. Just kind of guessing that, seeing where it's going to go. And you could see here that one of the really good setup for the short was right here. That was an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below 0, and that's exactly what happened there, and down it went. With that, CVX, just kind of showing you some major things out there of what's going on. You can see this broke off and it went all the way down to its 200. Now, maybe it'll go further, but that's why I think that the USO itself could get to its daily 200. Price up, Moxie indicator down, there's your negative divergence. And then you can also see there is your Moxie price trigger to the downside. Perfect. And then you can see, just kept getting run into by the underside of a downtrending hourly 50. So pretty heavy stuff in that sector. UNG, which is natural gas, you could see the same thing. It came all the way down to its daily 200 and then bounced, which is, again, kind of why I'm thinking that USO might get down to its daily 200. Now, just because UNG bounced doesn't mean I think it's bullish. I think this is actually a bounce right here into resistance, and probably just a bounce in a downtrend. So I would not be surprised to see, probably in short order, that this thing is going to come back down. Now, how far it goes, or if the next drop is going to be into support or not, that's something to have to be seen. We're going to have to wait and see about that. But so far, I can just kind of tell you where I'm seeing things happening. All right, and then with that, GLNG, this is a trade that we took, and we've taken it to the short side. Here was an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below 0. And it's just been working its way down. And it would be awesome to see if it can get down to its daily 200, because that would be a nice % gain on that one. So we got that. And then, okay, let's get into some of the bigger stocks, like Amazon. What the heck is this thing doing? Just chopping sideways. It's just chopping. Maybe there's a bit of a wedge situation going on there. So, maybe it's tightening up a little bit, and as it does this, it's going to pick a direction, right? It's going to pick a direction. We don't know which direction. So that's all I can say. There's really not much setup to be working with because it is just chopping sideways. So that's Amazon. Apple has been strong. Apple has actually been making some pretty good sense. So what you can see here is there is a trampoline move right there. Price should not be below the 50 if the Moxie indicator is above 0, so trampoline move. And then you can see it basically had a flag into an uptrending hourly 50, and it was up today. And okay, so it's up today. Now I do think at some point these up moves will run into resistance because you are trying to go up across a downtrending daily 50, and those angles do not agree with each other. So at some point it's going to pull back, and we'll have to see if the pullback is a resumption of the downtrend or if it's just a pullback. But trade it for as long as you can, but then make sure you have tight stops because things can really turn in a hurry with this market. All right, then, so we got Google, and Google is just looking terrible too. Look at that. So what do you do here? Google, while it's kind of in this channel, it is just going back and forth with this channel. I don't know if that necessarily looks bullish, maybe bullish to where it's going to break out, or is this just a bear flag that is then going to resolve lower? It's hard to say right now because it's mostly just going sideways, chopping in a pretty wide range sideways. All right, then Tesla's got earnings, and remember, a lot of these stocks have earnings, which is probably going to be the next, other than the FOMC, which is at the end of this month. earnings are going to be another big thing. And with the FOMC, the Fed, the Federal Reserve, we're hearing, I guess, 100 basis point raise, 100 basis point raise in interest rates is at least on the table now. So it might be a serious thing. CPI came in hot, PPI came in hot, and they're probably like, crap, we need to do something about this. So same thing, just kind of in a wedge situation. What's it going to do? Maybe it's going to pop. I would like to think so. The Moxie indicator has been above 0 this whole time, and it looks like it's trying to build some sort of base in order to pop. Now, will that happen before, after, or because of earnings? We don't know yet. And if you want to trade earnings, that's up to you, because it's kind of a binary event. Either it's going to be awesome or not awesome. All right, then some of the ones I want to show you, NVAX. And I thought this was interesting. If we come over here, NVAX, and on the weekly, daily, hourly chart, and I'll show you on the 15 too, 15 also, is if we look at this, this is kind of what I talk about as the first move versus the second move. So like I was saying, Apple, Apple is trying to get over its daily 50. That's great. But at some point it's going to run into resistance and pull back. And this is exactly what I'm trying to talk to people about. You can see here how price did get over a downtrending daily 50. And at some point you can see this giant gap that was here between price and the 50 got filled, came back in a hurry. There must have been news today, whatever it was, because it just dropped. And you can see it dropped right when price broke off of the hourly 50. And then I'd also say right here, roughly the weekly 21 EMA, which tends to be resistance. Now the key, if this is something you're looking for and want to trade, the key, the clue, was this on the 15-minute time frame. Here's price over the 15-minute 50. Notice that the Moxie indicator is below 0. That's an inverse trampoline move on the 15-minute time frame, and it was telling you that it didn't want to go up. So, and then the news came out today and boom, straight down. So the indicators are calling this stuff out. They're able to show you some of these things. All right, then LWLG. This one I mostly just want to show you a couple things. So very interesting to see that this stock is doing what it's doing, because it has just shot up for who knows what reason. And would have been nice to be along for the ride on something like that. But who ever expects something to do this in this kind of market? That's why it's like, if you see the setup, take the setup and just see where it goes, because you never know where it's going to actually go. But as far as the setup goes, let me zoom here. So actually there were two things on that time frame. One, you could see that there was a major double bottom with positive divergence. So there's your Moxie indicator at work. The other thing is you could see that there was a local double bottom. That's also an elf shoe. Here's the leg, here's the heel, here's the arch of the foot, ball of the foot, there's your elf toe. On the hourly chart, double bottom, positive divergence. However, this is also a trampoline move. Price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above 0 is a trampoline move. And then on the 15-minute time frame, you can see how well price held the 15-minute 50 with the Moxie indicator above 0, looking great. And then this thing just took off and followed the 15-minute 50. Now, if you were along this, I would be out. I'd absolutely be out. This has too big of a move. It's going to come back down. You're lucky if it doesn't implode, but this is probably the height that it's going to go. It's hitting the daily 21 EMA. It's outside of the 30 ATR. I mean, this thing's just straight up, and there's a pretty big gap between price and the hourly 50, and you can see that the 15-minute Moxie indicator is collapsing. So I would absolutely be out if you were long this, and if you wanted to short something, you might be able to short this. Now, the shorts are not always the easiest thing. They can chop around or go sideways for a while, but it does seem likely to me that a significant pullback is due, and so you might be able to trade this on the short side if you're interested. All right, everyone. Well, thanks again for your time, and I'll catch you guys next week. We'll see what the market has in store for us. All right, thanks again.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.